Hey guys, Ashi here, and I've decided to reopen this channel because I want to use my Goddess Ashi's Realm channel for primarily cartoon content, but right now there's not a lot going on in cartoons. Actually, there's very little. I'm going to be doing some Amphibia videos later, and of course I'm waiting on the return for the Owl House to talk about more Owl House stuff. And I'm probably going to do a little bit more on the Ghost of Molly McGee, but cartoons are a little slow at the moment. There's nothing super big coming out. I may do a video later on this week on that channel about Young Justice Season 4, but as of right now, I want to make some videos on anime, so I've decided to use this channel for anime and anime-related videos. Today I'm going to be doing a character biography, and I'm going to do multiple of these on different characters, explaining different characters, and if you'd like to see this on my cartoon channel too, let me know. But basically, today I wanted to talk about the most important character in One Piece. No, I don't mean Luffy. No, I don't mean Im-sama. Or even Goldie Roger himself, the king of the pirates. Not even Joy Boy, the mythical legend of the series. No, I'm going to be talking about Blackbeard, aka Marcel D. Teach. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. How can Blackbeard be important? Well, or how important is Blackbeard? I mean, I know he's kind of an antagonist and he did some bad things to Ace, but is he really that important to the series, Ashi? Well, actually, yes. Almost every event that has happened in One Piece in the story can be attributed to Blackbeard himself. Now, I plan to do some theory-related stuff about him by the end of this video, but for the first part, we're just going to be talking about the hard facts. Blackbeard has been pulling strings for well over 30 years in this series, and that's impressive. He's set up a lot of the major events that we know of in the One Piece story, but we have to start when he was first introduced. So let's go all the way back to pre-Grand Line and look at when we met him in Mocktown. That's right. So, well, a lot of people actually don't know this, and by a lot of people I mean more casual One Piece watchers, actually don't know that the man that Luffy met in the bar here, who he challenged to a cherry pie eating contest / drinking contest, that was the same Blackbeard that, you know, murdered Ace, well, got Ace murdered and killed Whitebeard. Most people don't really even know these characters are the same person, actually. I've kind of been surprised. Now, of course, hardcore One Piece fans know, but a lot of my more casual friends and viewers actually have been surprised when I explained to them that this is the first time Blackbeard actually appears in the series. Because he looks radically different, I guess, from the next time we see him at Impel Down. Well, technically, when he fights Ace, actually, a little bit before Impel Down. So, I guess I could see not knowing, but either way, there's a lot of importance in this meeting with Luffy, and it sets up stuff in the show way beyond the endgame of One Piece. Like, it sets up story and mirrors that we can't even describe. So, when Blackbeard meets Luffy, they mirror each other. They're eating the food, but at the same time, they also opposite each other. So, Luffy enjoys the juice, while Blackbeard enjoys the pies. They almost start a fight. And then, of course, you know, the whole thing with Bellamy happens. But the more important thing is the scene that happens after that. The scene is Zoro and Nami and Luffy are leaving the bar. It was this scene here.
ねえ、あいつ空島について何か知ってたのかも。何者かしら。
さあ、それにあいつじゃね。
あいつじゃない？じゃあ何？
あいつらだ、多分な。
So the importance of this scene cannot be understated. In fact, this scene sets up a very premise of mirrored parallels and opposites between Luffy and Blackbeard for the rest of the series, and also foreshadows some of the most amazing events along with some of the darkest events in all of One Piece. So, I know at first it seems like Blackbeard is just rambling to Luffy about dreams, and that he says some crazy stuff like Luffy and Zoro won that fight to Nami. But actually Luffy and Zoro won that fight, because Bellamy had no dreams, he had no will, he was just a servant of another man. So if Luffy and Zoro had easily beaten him, it would have just been spitting on their own dreams and goals, because they're just beating a man with no dream. That's what Blackbeard meant by they won that fight. But that's not the most important part. Remember the Mirror of Threes. The number 3 is synonymous with Blackbeard. His ship has 3 skulls. When they got to the town, they met 3 of his crewmates. And when the Straw Hats are standing in front of him outside of the bar, there are 3 Straw Hats and 3 Shadows. The number 3 is very, very important when it comes to Blackbeard, but I'll go into that more at the theory stuff at the end. So, what Blackbeard explains to Luffy about the Age of Pirates and the Age of Dreams not being dead, and the Sky Islands and the One Piece and all of that being real, is important because it proves that Blackbeard is the same type of dreamer as Luffy. But what's even more important is when Blackbeard is talking, the 2 faces that flash in Luffy's mind. Now, this happened both in the manga and the anime, and it's incredibly great foreshadowing. So, the 2 characters that flash in Luffy's mind when Blackbeard, aka Marshall D. Teach, is talking is Shanks and Ace. Now, we already know, people who are caught up in the anime know exactly what happened with Blackbeard and Ace. In fact, at this point in the anime, we could have even inferred that there was a fight between them back when this episode or this chapter first came out, because we knew when Ace went to Drum Island, he was hunting Blackbeard. But what we didn't know is the, catastrophic events that will happen on Marineford. But as you guys know, eventually Blackbeard captured Ace, and it led to Ace's death. It also led to the death of Whitebeard, which doesn't bode well for Shanks. In fact, Shanks already has another death marker from Blackbeard on him besides this. There's the 3-pronged scar on Shanks' eye, which we know was given to him by Blackbeard, proving that there was a time in which Blackbeard was strong enough to scar a Yonko. Now, he may not have been Yonko at this time, but we know he also wasn't a kid exactly, because we know he wasn't a kid from the Roger flashbacks. We know that it wasn't that fight on Wano. So, it's safe to assume that Shanks was probably already pretty strong, if not Yonko level or getting close. He'd probably already been sparring with Mihawk, yet Blackbeard was able to give him that scar. This is incredibly important because, again, this foreshadows probably another death flag, because Blackbeard and Luffy's destinies are intertwined, and that's what this scene proves. Now, after this scene, something super important happens. As Luffy and Zoro are walking away, Nami asks, "Who was he?" And Zoro and Luffy respond with more like "they." Luffy can infer that the Blackbeard that he was talking to outside the bar was not the same Blackbeard that he was talking to inside the bar. In fact, it's almost as if they sensed danger from him at this point. They looked serious as they were walking away. Whereas, like in the bar, Luffy was literally ready to throw hands with this goofy guy and challenge him to a fighting contest. Now, we now know what happened at this scene, or at least we can infer what happened at this scene. Because later on, Luffy meets Blackbeard inside Impel Down, and Blackbeard states that Luffy's haki has gotten stronger. Now, at this point, we haven't even seen Luffy really use haki as far as we know. Like, haki as we know it, like his Conqueror's haki and stuff like that, that wouldn't be used into Marineford. But if we go back to this scene with Zoro and Luffy walking away, we can actually assume that they may have activated Observation Haki. And that's how they sensed that there was more than one personality or soul inside Blackbeard, and that's why they said more like they. They sensed that he was a different person using their observation hockey by accident, just on reflex. That's how much guard Blackbeard put them on. And then after that, when he meets Luffy at Impel Down, he can tell that Luffy's hockey has gotten stronger since then, even though Luffy hasn't even begun to master hockey. Which proves that Blackbeard also, at this moment in time, had observation hockey and could sense Luffy's power and presence. It may even be that he could sense the Supreme King energy coming from Luffy. But how does this mirror everything? And what does that mean, Achi? How are Luffy and Blackbeard similar? Well, we're about to get into that. Now let's talk about those mirrored parallels between Luffy and Blackbeard, and how their journeys are similar. Now we know Luffy's journey pretty well, but let's start by just talking about how Blackbeard's journey started. He was somewhere between the age of 14 to 16 when he met Whitebeard. He was a poor kid on an island and he begged Whitebeard to join his crew. Now Whitebeard sensed something about the kid that was off, but he still let him join anyways. There's our first parallel. Luffy's journey started because of Shanks, a Yonko, and Blackbeard's journey started because of Whitebeard, another Yonko. Shanks inspired Luffy to become a pirate, and well, Whitebeard made Blackbeard into a pirate. That's already a very similar start between the two, but there's more. Let's look at how Luffy got his devil fruit, the Gomu Gomu no Mi. He gets it from Shanks, from befriending a Yonko. Well, this is a little bit of that mirror opposite parallel. Blackbeard gets the Yami Yami no Mi because he planned to get it. He joined Whitebeard's crew to find the fruit, and eventually he does get it by killing one of his fellow crew members, Thatch, and that's how he gets the Yami Yami no Mi. So Luffy got a weird paramecia, the Gomu Gomu no Mi, and Blackbeard got a powerful but strange Logia in the Yami Yami no Mi, another mirror. Now, there's also the fact that, we'll skip ahead a little bit to the Alabasta arc. Luffy defeated a Warlord of the Sea, a Shichibukai. Blackbeard became a Shichibukai by bringing in Ace, Luffy's brother. Another one of those sort of opposite parallels that connect the two once again. Now, Luffy is fighting a Yonko in Kaido and Big Mom, and he is becoming a Yonko himself, and Blackbeard became a Yonko. Now their paths are literally linear in line with each other, and they're both racing towards the One Piece. Now, of course, Luffy did his by direct honesty and friendship, whereas Blackbeard did his sort of underhandedly. But still, their journeys are very similar. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is Blackbeard's true goal. And then after this, we'll get into a little bit of the theory connection. Well, actually probably during this part. So, Blackbeard's goal. Obviously, it's very similar to Luffy's in the sense that, he wants to find the One Piece. But before that, let's track back a little bit to what Blackbeard has done in the series. So, Blackbeard effectively caused the death of Whitebeard and Ace, caused the Battle of Marineford, and set up quite a lot of the current turmoil in the series and the power vacuum between, the warlords being disbanded and the world government. So he's done quite a bit and pulled a lot of strings in the background. And it's not like this plan hasn't taken him a while. It's been around 30 years in the making. I mean, he joined Whitebeard's crew at age 14 to 16 just so he could find the Yami Yami no Mi, a specific devil fruit to counter Logias. Then he ends up killing Whitebeard and taking the Guru Guru no Mi, what is considered to be the world's strongest paramecia fruit. And now he went from a warlord to a Yonko. And technically because of his random betrayal and everything, it's kind of why the warlord system was disbanded in the first place. So, Blackbeard has caused a lot of behind the scenes string pulling damage that has echoed throughout this entire series. Now, something that's discussed a lot about Blackbeard, but I'm going to go over it just in a bit of lighter detail, I guess. I don't want to go too far into it because I'm sure you've all heard this part of the Blackbeard story theory. But it's his connection to another character from the past, someone similar to Goldie Roger to Luffy, and that's Rox D. Zebek. Now, the first immediate connection we can make is the name of Blackbeard's ship, his flagship, the Saber of Zebek. Now, it would seem weird just to name your ship after Zebek, obviously, because when we first hear about him from Sengoku, we learned that Zebek's name has almost been wiped from history, and most people who even know about the crew at this point don't even know his last name. They just call him Rox, or Rox D. The Zebek has long been forgotten, but Blackbeard made it very, very clear that he wanted to name his ship the Saber of Zebek, meaning that he knew Zebek's last name and story. Now, this should have been a little bit before Blackbeard's time, in the sense of, like, he would be really, really young when the events of God Valley took place, if born at all. Well, he could have been born. I think he would have been like 2 at the events of God Valley, if my math is correct. But I don't buy the theory about Blackbeard being Zebek's son exactly, or Blackbeard being, like, we'll get more into that later. But either way, his connection to Zebek kind of makes Blackbeard, just like Luffy, a major enemy of the world government, and that's why when we see Im-sama, he has a picture of Luffy and Blackbeard. They're both equally dangerous to the world government. They both have that mysterious will of D, Luffy being Monkey D. Luffy, and Blackbeard being, Marshall D. Teach. They both have that strange connection to the will of D, and that makes them an automatic enemy of the world government, the Gorosei, and the Celestial Dragons. They're both of an equal threat. Another connection in parallel between Luffy and Blackbeard, I guess, if you want to infer that. But also, Blackbeard kind of shares the Zebek's dream, which in a way makes him more dangerous. We don't know Zebek's exact goal, but we already know that Blackbeard created a pirate island paradise, Hachinoko, just like Zebek did back in the day, and he's gonna have a crew of extremely strong former pirates under his belt, just like Zebek did when he had Whitebeard and Big Mom and Kaido and Wang Ji and all those people on his crew. Now, and as we also know, this became a direct conflict when Roger had to fight Zebek at God Valley, and this caused, also I guess Garp was also there, so the Marines were there too, and this caused God Valley to disappear off the map. Now, we're not exactly sure the reason. Now, a lot of people assume that Zebek had the Yami Yami no Mi, but that hasn't even been confirmed yet. But what we do know is that for some odd reason, he wanted to storm the land of the Celestial Dragons. Now, this is probably also a goal of Whitebeard. Now, we don't know the reason, but we can also, besides the One Piece, we could also infer that Blackbeard probably wants to take down the Celestial Dragons, the Gorosei and Im-sama in some way, because Zebek, originally, like I said, stormed their land. So we can expect that Blackbeard will probably want to attack at some point. Maybe it's after, he finds the One Piece, or maybe before, or maybe after he takes care of the rest of the Yonko, whatever, that he will eventually storm Marie Joie, the current land of the Celestial Dragons, because God Valley is long gone. Now, I'm sure in the time we might find out, and I wouldn't be surprised if Blackbeard knows what happened to God Valley. Obviously, he has some connection to Zebek, who we don't know if is alive or dead. We know that after the events of God Valley, Zebek disappeared. That's all we know from Sengoku. Now, this is where we get into the theory territory a little bit. Now, there are lots of theories about Blackbeard, okay? There are a lot. The ones I will openly disagree with are the Cerberus fruit theory. I'm not a fan of that. The fact that he ate a Zo fruit that, suddenly, oh wow, he has the power of the Cerberus, and now he can eat 2 more fruits because he has 2 more heads. I'm not a fan of that theory. I don't buy into it. I also don't buy into the squid theory, though I think that one's interesting. The whole, multiple hearts, multiple brains that squids have or whatever. Now, I do admit that I do understand the connection with the bones on his flag equaling up to the same number of tentacles that, a squid or an octopus would have, I guess. But I still don't buy that theory either. In fact, when I explain my theory, I have an answer for the bones, the 8 bones on the flag too. Now, the other Blackbeard theory I don't buy is that the Yami Yami no Mi allows you to have multiple devil fruits. Because I don't believe that, because the Yami Yami no Mi would have been a much more legendary fruit that surely would be sought after by the Gorosei, more so than the Gomu Gomu no Mi or Law's Api Api no Mi, because if it's a fruit that allows you to have multiple devil fruit, surely the world government, or at least Im-sama and the Gorosei, would know about it. So I don't buy that either. The theory I believe the most about Blackbeard kind of stems from what we already know about him. We know he doesn't sleep. We know about the personality change and that they sense they inside of him. So I believe this. Either there are 3 separate souls or 3 separate split personalities inside Blackbeard. Now, let's tackle each of those, okay? Let's start with the 3 separate souls theory. So the 3 separate souls that I believe would be inside Blackbeard would be Marshall D. Teach himself, then Zebek, and the last soul could either be someone we don't know, or it could also be Joy Boy. Now I hear what you're saying. What, Ashi? Well, what I'm saying is because Blackbeard and Luffy mirror each other so much, that he could also be part of Joy Boy's reincarnation. We don't know that it's just one chosen person. It could be 2 in the case of Luffy and Blackbeard fulfilling Joy Boy's wishes. Luffy fulfilling the wishes of the being free and keeping the promises, whereas Blackbeard fulfilling the taking down the world government part. Kind of like Zebek and Roger. It wasn't their time. It wasn't time for Roger to, free the world and go and find Raftel. He says that, Raftel. He says that when he gets there, that he was too early. So it wasn't Roger's job, but Luffy inherited the will. Well, what if Zebek's goal and job was to take down the world government and Im-sama? Well, it wasn't his time yet, so it's been passed to Blackbeard. There's also the statement that Blackbeard makes in Mocktown where he says, dreams never die. I've always thought that was so weird. He specifically said they never die. Now that could be the talk of inherited will, or that could mean that Zebek's dream is very much still alive. Either as part of Blackbeard or not. Now let's go with the other theory. There's another older soul besides Joy Boy inside of him, like someone from the Void Century. Wouldn't you be like, well, the antithesis to Joy Boy is Im-sama? Not necessarily. There could have been another pirate. So One Piece is all about passing parallels. So if Roger had Zebek, then Joy Boy could have had a Zebek of his own from way back when that we just haven't been introduced yet, or that just hasn't been part of the story. I mean, think about it. Im-sama was looking at both Luffy and Blackbeard. So what if there were 2 people very similar? There was a Joy Boy and another person who posed just as much of a threat to what Im-sama was planning, similar to Joy Boy, but in a more violent way like Zebek. Then Blackbeard could also be inheriting his will and his soul. Because One Piece is all about mirrored parallels and inherited will. So, also, the reason I don't think it has anything to do with Im-sama is because the world government is a neutral force of balance. They keep the pirates in check. They're not meant to be the main enemies or the main antagonists. Yes, the world government would appear to be the main enemy to Joy Boy, but we actually don't know that for sure, because we don't know if Im-sama was the one who stopped Joy Boy. We just know that Im-sama erased the history of what Joy Boy did, and the Joy Boy didn't keep his promises. We have no idea if there was another player in this game. Now, there's also the other theory, the multiple personalities. Now, when I think about this, I think about Sensui from Yu Yu Hakusho, who had multiple personalities and multiple powers that manifested based on those personalities. Now, this one would be kind of interesting because I think this also would play into the possibility of Blackbeard somehow have meeting Zebek, him instilling the dream into him and his goals, and then young Blackbeard's personality splitting based on this. One that agreed with the ideas of Zebek, one that agreed with the ideas of Goldie Roger and being free and king of the pirates, and one who is just Teach himself, who is this goofy, silly guy who likes to eat cherry pies. Now, the reason I think that they can consume multiple devil fruit is, again, I'm more into the multiple souls theory, or the Blackbeard's body, because we already know that Blackbeard's body is odd. We've learned this from Marco, and we learned that he didn't sleep from Buggy. So, I believe that Blackbeard, obviously, with these multiple souls, could consume the Yami Yami no Mi, and that if that was the case, it was consumed by the personality that either mirrors Zebek or that is Zebek. And then there's the Gura Gura no Mi that was consumed by Whitebeard. And this was, the reason I say this, by Blackbeard. Now, the reason I say that this one was consumed by Blackbeard, most likely, is because Blackbeard was with Whitebeard the whole time and probably admired Whitebeard a lot, so he would consume his fruit. Then the last fruit, which will probably be a Paramecia, will probably be consumed, or which will probably be a zone, will probably be consumed by either the part of him that would be like the rival to what the ancient Joy Boy would be, or the Joy Boy part. At least that's my theory on the subject. Now, you guys let me know what you think, but I've always bought into the multiple souls or the multiple personalities, and that these either souls or personalities warped Blackbeard's body into a strange way. Now, we do have proof of this, that he, like, with other than the they line. The fact of it is, the base form Blackbeard that we know could never have taken on Shanks. But there is a point in which Blackbeard is able to injure Shanks. He injures him with his eye. Also, the base Blackbeard in the bar didn't worry Luffy or scare him, but the one outside made him and Zoro on full alert, seeming like a much more powerful individual. Which is why I stand by the thought of the reincarnation of Zebek, and the reincarnation of either another Joy Boy-esque person, or Joy Boy himself. Someone either from Joy Boy's timeline who had the same sort of thought process as Joy Boy, but followed more the Zebek line, or Joy Boy himself, like he's another inheritor of the will of Joy Boy, like Luffy, only a bit more literal in his body and soul. If I had to pick one that I think is more likely, I would say that there is another unknown player that we don't know about yet, similar to Im-sama, who was around at the same time as Joy Boy, but instead of trying to be free like Joy Boy and Roger, he tried to take down the world government like Zebek. And we just haven't met with him yet. Obviously, there's a reason that Zebek wanted to go to Marie Joie. It could have to do with Joy Boy or someone else. And there's obviously a reason why Blackbeard will eventually target the land of the Celestial Dragons too. Now, I think that by now you guys can see that Blackbeard's story is way more important than you probably thought it was in the series. And now you can probably see why he is the main antagonist of One Piece, and why he will be the final boss for Luffy to fight before he makes it to the Grand Line into Laugh Tale. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, I'm going to be doing anime videos on this channel. Now, if you like my cartoon content, there's a link to my cartoon channel, Goddess Ashi's Realm. So, with that out of the way, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and Ashi signing out. So, this is future Ashi here, fixing a problem at the end of the video that past Ashi forgot to add in. I said I would explain the number of bones on Blackbeard's flag. Well, that's because I forgot to put this in when I was explaining the theory. But I don't believe the bones represent squid or octopus parts. I think that they represent arm bones. Like pirate flags, actually, if you look this up, the skull and crossbones represent arms or legs. Well, I think that these also represent arms in this case. Now, I know what you're thinking. If there are 3 souls in Blackbeard, that would only be 6 arms, Ashi. But I also think we have to consider the possibility of the Will of D, or Joy Boy, and the mysterious past Joy Boy rival that I talked about in my theory. So, what I believe the arms represent are either the other set of arms will represent the Will of D, or it represents this. It represents Blackbeard himself, Marcel D. Teach, Zebek, the past Joy Boy, and the Joy Boy / Will of D, equaling up to a total of 8 arms. That's my thought on this. Sorry I had to add this in at the end of the video. I am done.